Welcome to my pitch for the text-based decision-making strategy game, Overthrow. In Overthrow, players assume the role as a serf in a kingdom under rule of a tyrant. The player must make decisions on whether to use their energy and resources to appease the king and avoid suspicion, or further develop the plot to overthrow them. The player is presented with two choices at a time and a menu-style interface, each crucial in furthering their plot to subvert the king. Each decision will boost one of two efforts of the serf, gradually raising the meter for that goal. The goal of the player is to dethrone the king. This is done by either rallying the population of the kingdom, political coups, or even flat-out assassination by using the appease plot system. The appease plot meter status at the end of the game will determine one of dozens of endings for the playthrough. The player chooses to plot against the king too much. The meter for avoiding detection will not be sufficient, and the player is caught and executed. The only adversary to the player is the king, which is controlled by the computer and determines when and how to engage in safety checks against the serf. At times, the player will be warned that the king will be checking the population for assassins in X amount of turns. Other times, the king will randomly perform a check against the serf's detection meter. These random checks will typically require a much lower amount of safety, but will still encourage the player to keep a steady balance of appeasing the king while working on their rebellious plot. One of two choices provided could lead to a minigame for the player to determine the level of effect for the decision made. Trying to appease the king? How many satchels of hay can the player harvest in time? Trying to poison the king's cup? How well can you sneak past the guards and drop the poison in? These minigames will be played from a top-down or 2D perspective, depending on the event triggered. They will allow the player to push their decisions to the limit by allowing real-time action to determine the outcome. As the player progresses, the impact of the decisions becomes greater, leading to a high-risk, high-reward endgame scenario. The varying decisions from a large pool of choices will give the player a different experience each time the game is played, allowing for thousands of unique playthroughs. Overthrow is similar to the indie hit Papers, Please, where players work on an immigration booth, checking documents and either allowing or denying people entry. Each decision contributes to the player's pay, which is used to feed and take care of their family. Overthrow gives a nod to the game, since the menu-style decisions made during gameplay affect an overarching outcome for the player. Now, one of the design risks evolve around the multitude of decisions that can be made by the player. Although this will require the team to develop a plethora of text-based outcomes for the appease plot mechanics, the implementation will be simple, since the decisions either change the status of a meter or they lead to a minigame scenario. The other potential risk is the nature of text-based games. These games typically don't have flashy graphics or high-flying action to keep the player engaged. However, the game's large amount of decisions to be made will make sure no playthrough is exactly the same. This, paired with the quick infusions of action from the minigames, the player will be able to satiate their desire for real-time gameplay and weave a strategic web using the text-based system at the same time. Will you be the one to save the kingdom? Find out in Overthrow. Thanks for watching.